Welcome to our channel Intellectingly. In October 1962, the world stood on the brink of nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis marked the closest point humanity has ever come to full-scale atomic conflict. This is the story of those 13 terrifying days. Since the end of World War II, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union had been escalating. This was the Cold War, an ideological battle between capitalism and communism. But it wasn't until 1962 that these tensions would peak. In 1959, Fidel Castro seized power in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. His government aligned itself with the Soviet Union, alarming the United States. But it wasn't until U.S. spy planes captured photographs of missile installations in Cuba that the situation spiraled out of control. On October 14, 1962, a U-2 spy plane flying over Cuba captured images of Soviet missile sites under construction. These missiles had the capability to reach major American cities within minutes. President John F. Kennedy and his team were faced with an impossible dilemma: how to respond without sparking a nuclear war.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. Upon receiving the first preliminary hard information of this nature, last Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., I directed that our surveillance be stepped up. And having now confirmed and completed our evaluation of the evidence and our decision on a course of action, this government feels obliged to report this new crisis to you in fullest detail. This sudden, clandestine decision to station strategic weapons for the first time outside of Soviet soil is a deliberately provocative and unjustified change in the status quo, which cannot be accepted by this country if our courage and our commitments are ever to be trusted again by either friend or foe.
For 13 days, the world watched as Kennedy and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev engaged in a high-stakes standoff. The U.S. imposed a naval blockade around Cuba, preventing Soviet ships from delivering more missiles. Tensions ran high as both sides readied their nuclear arsenals. The world held its breath. October 27, 1962, came to be known as Black Saturday, the most dangerous day of the crisis. An American U-2 plane was shot down over Cuba, and both superpowers were on the verge of launching their nuclear missiles. That night, however, backchannel negotiations began to bear fruit. On October 28, a deal was reached. Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba in exchange for the U.S. promise not to invade the island nation. Additionally, the United States secretly agreed to dismantle its missiles stationed in Turkey, just outside the Soviet Union's borders. This backdoor diplomacy ensured that the world avoided a nuclear catastrophe. But the Cuban Missile Crisis forever changed how nations viewed the dangers of atomic weapons and led to a series of nuclear arms control treaties in the years that followed. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a turning point in Cold War history. It led to a direct communication link between Washington and Moscow, known as the hotline, to prevent future misunderstandings. It also marked a shift toward greater diplomacy and arms control, though the Cold War would continue for decades. The lessons learned during those 13 days are still relevant today, as the world continues to grapple with the threat of nuclear weapons. The Cuban Missile Crisis stands as a powerful reminder of how close we came to nuclear annihilation, and how careful diplomacy can pull us back from the edge. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video informative, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more historical insights.